This video is sponsored by Clever Supply Co. Use ChrisChew10 for 10% off at checkout. So I made a couple street photography videos, and in those videos you would watch me from like a first person point of view of me using my manual focus camera and photographing people on the streets. But one of the top comments that I always get is, how do you get those pictures in focus all the time? And the short answer is zone focusing. A lot of people, when they start out with a manual focus lens, they get a little bit intimidated because autofocus is no longer on their side. This camera is a Leica M6. It's a film camera. There's no electronics in this besides the light meter. And this lens has no autofocus. So it's not like a Fuji X100V or a Canon R5 where I could just snap a point and I will photograph the person tack sharp in focus. For this video, I will be teaching you how to zone focus and how to increase your chances in photographing fast-paced actions and capturing a narrative. But first, I'm going to quickly explain what zone focusing is. Alright, so say for example, you are the photographer right here, and I'm going to draw a distance from you right here all the way out here. And say for example, you were shooting this subject right over here. If you're shooting at a shallow depth of field at f1.4, these black arrows represent the front and the back of your focus. So right here, you'll get a very shallow depth of field where this person would be in focus, but everything outside of that would be very blurry. And this is what images look like when you shoot at a shallow depth of field. But if we're shooting on street, shooting at f1.4 on a manual focus lens is incredibly hard, because if this person is moving left and right or towards you or further away from you, you have to hunt your focus so fast with this person, and that is next to impossible. So what we do in zone focusing is opening up this aperture, or closing it down rather, to maybe f8, and then now this razor thin depth of field is now widened like crazy. This is what happens when you close down your aperture. You get a deeper depth of field. So if there's a person that's quickly moving and they walk within this range of focus, you could just click the shutter button and they will be photographed in focus. If you close your aperture down even more to f22, this depth of field is going to be so deep that if you have a range of people walking into frame, whoever is within this front and back of your hyperfocal distance are going to be in focus. All of these people will. So at its very core, this is what zone focusing is. Adjust your camera settings for a deep depth of field. Shoot like f5.6 to f8 or f22. Pre-focus your lens in the right area. Step 3, click the shutter. So right when they walk into your deep depth of field right here, for example, once they stumble upon that, then you can photograph, and then you got your street photo. Don't let me get in my zone. 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 You may have noticed that on your camera lens, there are a lot of numbers engraved on the barrel of the lens, and this holds especially true for manual focus lenses. Even my 35mm Canon lens has these distance markers. I have my aperture zones over here, and I have a distance marker over here, the bottom row being in meters and the top row being in feet. So as I'm focusing my camera, the lens is also corresponding to how far the subject is that I'm trying to focus on. But these numbers don't jump out of the page and make sense to everybody right away, at least for me. So I'm going to explain what each of these rows mean, and I'm going to show you why this helps us with zone focusing so much. Alright, so at the top of the lens is my aperture, and I'm going to set it at f8, and obviously this is going to allow a certain amount of light enter my camera and expose my film or my sensor, but it also allows me to have greater depth of field and to have a greater focus zone. So down here at the bottom row, we're going to find the numbers that correspond with f8. So right here, we're going to find 8, and then we're only going to pay attention to this zone right here. Anything from 3 feet to approximately 5 feet is going to be in focus. Now, anything from 5 feet to infinity is also going to be in focus, so that's pretty sick. So once you understand what settings to resort to in different lighting scenarios, and you understand the zone of focus and the depth of field, you're treating this manual focus lens and this manual focus camera like a point and shoot. No longer do you have to think that you always have to nail critical focus all the time, because a deeper zone or a deeper depth of field allows you that margin of error when you're not nailing that critical focus. All you have to do is just set your zone, bring it up to your eye, compose, and then bam, all you got to do is shoot. Now, not all focus zones are made equally. This is a 28mm lens, but if I change to a 21mm lens, which is much wider, my zone is going to be a lot bigger. So let's go to f8, for example. Let's pay attention to our f8 zones. Now, anything from 3 feet to infinity is going to be in focus. And wow, that is like almost like everything. So that's pretty sick. The inverse happens when we're on a longer and tighter focal length. So this is a 50mm lens, which is a lot more punched in and provides a lot shallower of a depth of field. So if I'm at f8, let's rate our f8 zones, which is almost non-existent. You hardly get anything. So it's much easier to focus on a wide angle lens like a 21mm or a 28mm because our zones are so enormous versus something so tight like a 50mm lens. A lot of the greats from back in the day in street photography did zone focusing on the 50mm. I have no idea how they did it, but they did. So I know that was all nerdy and hyper technical, but trust me, it's a lot more simple than you think. Just practice a few times setting 2 zones at 1 aperture, possibly f8. Use your shutter speed to compensate for that, and you will nail a lot more shots than you will imagine when watching this video, and I highly recommend practicing as much as you can. Once you nail it down, you will focus much more on the composition and capturing the narrative in front of you and the story that is happening in front of your lens, and you can form the craziest images that you would have never imagined making before knowing what zone focusing was. I do want to remind you that this video is sponsored by Clever Supply Co, and they were generous enough to start this giveaway for all of you for this lovely minimalist leather strap with Peak Design integration. And if you don't know what it is, say for example, you have this camera strap and you're like, you know what, I want to go free-handed without something bumping into my face, just click off and now the strap is off. Oh, you want the strap back on? Click back on. Just like that, and it's all good. If you want to participate in the giveaway of this camera strap, go down to my Discord server linked down below in the description and find the commitment showcase. In that video, I want you to photograph your longest commitment and write a little blurb about it too. There are a few wonderful submissions, and I will be picking a winner on December 11th, which is this Saturday when this video goes live. So get to it. Thank you guys for watching this video. It was a super technical one, but a very important one as well. Hopefully I made it digestible enough, and I will be making more videos about Leica cameras, portraiture, photo techniques, camera techniques, film, digital, whatever it is. Make sure you subscribe, like this video, and comment down below. See you in the next one. Peace.